Once upon a time, in a place of Greece, religion affected in every aspect of Greek life. Greek considered religion as necessary to the well-being of the state. Temples dedicated to the gods and goddesses were major buildings in Greek cities. Olympus, where the chef of gods and goddesses lived. And now, we will meet the 12 gods and goddesses in the Greek Olympus. The first one is Zeus. Zeus is the chef of God and the father of all the gods. And Athena, the goddess of wisdom and craft. Apollo, god of the sun and poetry. Artemis, the sister of Apollo and also the goddess of moon and the hand. Ares, the god of war. Aphrodite, the goddess of love. Poseidon, the brother of Zeus and the god of all the seas and earthquakes. The spirits of people, regardless what they did on their life, went to a gloomy underworld ruled by the god Hades. In Greece, rituals are ceremonies or rites. Greek rituals conclude the prayers with gifts of the god. Festival developed as an honor to gods and goddesses. The first games held at Olympic Festival in 776 BC. Greek had a great desire to learn the will of gods. They made use of oracle, where god and goddesses revealed the future. The most famous oracle of Apollo, found at Delphi. The arts of Western world have been largely dominated by the standard sets of classical period in Greek. Let's talk about their architecture and sculpture. In architecture, the temple was the most important form which dedicated to a god or goddess. The finest example of Greek classical architecture were built in Athens by 5th century. The famous building on Acropolis is Parthenon, which dedicated to Athena, the patron goddess of Athens. The Parthenon shows the classical structures, which are the search for clarity and freedom and for calmness. The Greek sculpture, which developed lifelike statues of male nude, showed relaxed attitude. Classical Greek sculptors did not seek achievement, but rather than ideal standards of beauty.
In our story, the drama. Drama is created by the Greeks, which plays are presented out there as a part of religious festival. Tragedies is the first drama presented in trilogy, a set of 3 plays built around a common theme. Eurystheia is only a complete trilogy composed by Achilles. This story relates the fate of Agamemnon, a hero in a war of Trojan. Sophocles is another great Athenian playwright. His famous work was Oedipus Rex. This work talked about Oracle Apollo foretells one day that Oedipus kill his own father and marry his mother. Despite of all tried to prevent this, Oedipus commit a tragic acts. Another is Euripides. Is an outstanding dramatist. He tried to create more realistic character. His story became more complex and greater interest in her life situation. he portrayed was a brutal and a barbaric expressed deep compassion for women and children who suffered as a result of it. The Greek tragedies dealt with the universal themes, still relevant today. Let's move on in the writing of history. Greeks were the first people who present history as a systematic analysis of a past events. Herodotus. He is one of the Greeks that wrote the history of the Persian Wars, often seen the first real history in Western civilization. The theme was the conflict between Greeks and the Persian, which he viewed the struggle between the freedom of Greek and the despotism of Persian. He traveled and questioned many people for gaining the information about the conflict between the two. Herodotus was a master of storyteller. Thucydides, he is considered as the greatest historian of ancient world. Thucydides fought in the Great Peloponnesian War and wrote its history. Unlike Herodotus, Thucydides saw war and politics as the activities. He believed that the study of history was a great value in the understanding of the present. Greek philosophy. Philosophy means in the Greek word love of wisdom. Greek philosophers focus about the nature of the universe. They tried to explain the universe. In the 6th century BC, Pythagoras, a very familiar person for his Pythagorean theorem, he thought that the music and the numbers are the essence of the universe. In the 5th and 4th century BC, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle raised question that 1,000 years has been debated. Sophists are teachers group who traveled in Greece to spread speculation that Pythagoras is foolish. Their goal was to argue effectively, not to promote particular beliefs or ideas. Sophist, there was no absolute right or wrong for another. Socrates, he is one of the critics on Sophist. He is sculptor whose true love was philosophy. We know about him because of his pupils such as Plato. Socrates was a great teacher in many pupils, but he accepted no money. He taught his students how to live their lives by the code of ethics. He believed people live happy with a moral lives that could also taught how to behave morally. Socrates used teaching method that is still known by his name. The Socrates method uses a question and answer. He believed that the real knowledge is already present within each person. Socrates was accused and convicted of corrupting the youth of Athens by teaching them to question and think for themselves. Athenian jury sentenced him to die by drinking hemlock, a poison. Plato, one of Socrates' students, the greatest philosopher of Western civilization. He fascinated with the question of reality. He explained his ideas about government work entitled The Republic. Based on his experience, Plato had come to distrust the working of democracy. For him, individuals could not achieve a good life unless they lived in a just and a rational state. Aristotle, he was the famous pupil of Plato. Aristotle did not accept Plato's theory of ideal form. He think that testing individual objects we could preserve our form. He did not believe that this form existed in separate, higher world of reality beyond material things, but he thought of forms as a part of things themselves. Like Plato, Aristotle believed that people's happiness was tied to their behavior. He think that happiness resulted from living a life filled with virtue. The virtue was midpoint between extreme behaviors. Also like Plato, Aristotle wanted an effective form of government that would rationally direct humans' affairs. Unlike Plato, he did not find an ideal state but tried to find the best form of government by analyzing and by thinking the existing of the governments. The Olympics, festivals, and games in ancient Greece. The Olympic Games of ancient Greece began in 776 BC. The games were held at Olympia, one of the oldest and most venerated religious centers in the Greek world. In day 1, the athletes and spectators gather to prepare for the games. They came from different cities all over the Greece. In day 2, the games begin. First are the equestrian events, which are the horse and chariot racing, followed by the competition of 5 events: discus throw, javelin throw, jumping, running, and wrestling. In the third day, there are prayers, a feast, and a procession to the altar of Zeus, whom the games honor. In the fourth day, a day of intense competition, there are variety of foot races, wrestling, and boxing matches, and also the brutal pankrateion, a sort of combination of wrestling and boxing in which almost anything is allowed. And the last day was the closing day, is another one of celebration and ceremony. After a great feast, the spectators and the athletes begin the journey of home. Spectators have tales to tell. Losers perhaps are resolved to return, and winners the anticipation of a hero's welcome back home. And that's the end of the story of the culture of classical Greece.